Today we'll discuss Chapter 2, Recognizing Opportunities and Generating Ideas. This is where we'll start looking at how to come up with that idea. Maybe in the first chapter you decided entrepreneurship's for me, or you're not sure, or maybe you already kind of have an idea and you're wanting to know if it has legs, if it's something that you should move forward with. This will help you separate the ideas from the opportunities. I like that they do this separation. I haven't seen this in a book before, but a lot of times students will come in or people will come in and talk about things they want to do, but they're really things they want to do. They're not customer driven, they're not opportunity driven. So looking at your ideas in these ways, or trying to generate ideas with this framework in terms of looking at trends and looking for gaps in the market and things like that, will help you determine if you have an opportunity that you should move forward on and start looking into and moving through this exercises with, or if you just have an idea that probably isn't going to become a business. So we will look at that. I've also added quite a few slides about creativity and how to do the brainstorming and move. I feel like there's a lot of creative blocks. We do a lot of true and false, multiple choice, here's the answer, find the right answer. And this chapter asks you to step away from that. Sometimes that's hard, especially if you've been doing that for a long time, and get more creative and move out of your box that you usually operate in. So there's quite a few slides that have been added about creativity towards the end. I'm actually going to record these in two separate recordings so you can look through them separately. Objectives, explain the difference between ideas and opportunities, describe why creativity and innovation are such integral parts of entrepreneurship. That'll be in addition to what you've read in the chapter, something new. The 10 mental locks as well to individual creativity we'll look at. Describe the 3 general approaches used to identify opportunities, which came from your chapter 2. And then identify and describe techniques entrepreneurs use to generate ideas. We'll look at those as well. So what is an opportunity? An opportunity is a favorable set of circumstance that creates a need for a new product, service, or business. So we're looking for the need. I think that's key in this definition here. There's a reason why you should start this product, service, or new business. What are the 4 essential qualities of an opportunity? It needs to be attractive. It needs to be durable, something that can stand the test of time, something that has maybe some barriers to entry or isn't going to be easily replicated by other companies. Timely, you're looking at the window of opportunity, and then anchored in a product or service or business that creates or adds value to buyer or end users. That's where you get back to, I've had people in class, more than one person, love to craft. They're making bows at home, they're knitting blankets, they're making hats, whatever might be the case. And they love to do that, so they want to sell it. This is probably what we have if you get out on Etsy, a whole bunch of people that love to make things and think because they have this idea to make this thing, it should be a business. Well, how many places out on Etsy's never made a sale, or how many craft show people have never made a sale? Well, it's because they haven't anchored their idea in a product or service that adds value for a buyer or end user. And so, there's 100 places that sells bows. There's not really a need for what you're doing, and so it's not really an opportunity. So that I think is good, again, to get back to. Creativity and innovation. I like when they look at entrepreneurship, and they did this in the previous book, so I wanted to bring it forward because I really thought it was a nice way to look at entrepreneurship. So creativity, that's where you're developing the new ideas, discovering new ways of looking at problems and opportunities, thinking of new things. So we'll do that in brainstorming. That's kind of how you get started. And then innovation, this is where you're applying those creative solutions to problems, opportunities. That's where you're turning it into an opportunity by, anchoring it in a need out there, or a social trend, or a technology trend. You're going to do those new things. So you found some kind of a creative way to look at problems, opportunities. You're thinking of those new things, and then you're using innovation to anchor that in and make it a viable business. And then entrepreneurship, further, so that it moves that even further now. So now I'm using the process of creativity and innovation to develop the business, to putting all those things together in the structure of a business. So I think that's an interesting movement through creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship. Delves back into chapter 1 a little bit when we looked at definitions, but kind of helps you wrap around kind of the looseness of creativity. Well, where do I go from there? So I'm innovating, I'm attaching that to a need, something out there that it will work with. I'm creating that opportunity or defining that opportunity, and then even further, entrepreneurship moves it into a business. So again, another way to look at that. 3 ways to identify an opportunity: observing trends, solving a problem, finding gaps in the marketplace. These are really nice defined areas to start looking at your ideas and saying, does this make sense? Or to start generating ideas. I'm looking through these things. Observing trends. So they break it down into economic forces, social forces, technology advances, political and regulatory changes. It's important to stay on top of these areas so that you can find these opportunities that might be available. As you look through all of those forces, or there's different areas of trend, then you can define your service or opportunity gap and turn that into a business. Economic forces. So they talk about this very nicely in the book, where a weak economy doesn't necessarily mean there aren't opportunities. They're just different opportunities. So ways to save money, like Gas Buddy that they talk about in there, or up economy, maybe more luxury goods. Looking at how the economic trends change the needs and the wants of the consumer. Social forces. So this is where we're looking at like aging population, diversity in the workforce. They talk about social networks, use of mobile devices, increasing focus on health and wellness. You've seen that, I think, over probably the last 10-15 years, an increase in businesses that go with that. This alters how people behave, how they set their priorities. One thing I was thinking about is, people say they do one thing, and when we get into focus groups, how you ask those questions. They say they do one thing, and they maybe do something totally different. People would tell me all day, I love the setup of your spa. That is where I would go every time. But then that isn't where they go every time. If you ask the question, where did you go last time you got a service? Well, I went to the place on the street because I can't plan ahead. I don't set an appointment, and we're appointment based only. And the way we can create a spa experience right now, the way we can create that is it has to be appointment based. But yes, they in an ideal world would choose my product or service every time, but you need to look at how people behave. What are they actually doing? Well, they're not living in an ideal world. They're living in a busy world where they just want to be able to walk in, and there are lots of places that allow that. So they don't do business with me still. So social forces, I like how they discuss here, how are people behaving? How are these trends causing people to change what they do? Technology advances, obviously there are opportunities here, depending on how things are changing, and increased technology, increased use of apps and internet and things like that, changes in just the hardware and the software. And then political action and regulatory changes. These are the, if laws and things change, how can we help businesses or individuals become compliant or make changes to what they do. So we've looked at trends. Second approach is solving a problem. So we talked about this in the first chapter. Entrepreneurs look at problems as opportunities a lot of times. How can I find a way to solve this? You can observe trends. You can maybe have experienced it. They talk about serendipity or change or intuition. You may find something that you think could be better. Many companies are started by people that experience these themselves in their life. They realize that the solution to the problem might be a business opportunity. They talk about the fuel issues, looking for alternative fuels. This sprung up wind farms that were a solution to that type of problem. Gaps in the marketplace. A lot of times you might find something, I really like this. I think this market would like it, or how can I shrink this down for smaller communities, or for this target market that isn't being served. That was something I would say. Gap in the marketplace is what defined my opportunity. There are tons of spas out there. Obviously, I'm in a very saturated marketplace, but there weren't very many spas that focused on a middle class customer. You either went somewhere and spent $500 for a service, or $200, a very extravagant amount. It was a splurge. It was something you didn't do very often. Or you went somewhere and you got a subpar service. It was fast. They used inferior products. Maybe it was tucked behind all the hair places. It wasn't very clean. There are a lot of things missing. So someone that was willing to spend a little bit more, not $75 for a pedicure, but $40 versus $25 for a pedicure, wasn't able to find that mid-level, that good value service. And so gap in the market is what I saw. As I went to observe trends, I went to places, I watched customers, I talked with friends, I looked at people that weren't getting services and got some feedback. And they mentioned there as well, maybe there's just not a large enough market for bigger companies to get into. I'm in an industry that's very segmented, doesn't have a lot of big, like national players. So it's a very different market. But maybe you find, and we'll look at the example on the next one, how that works. The lady that there's no guitars made specifically for females. So she found that gap. It wasn't maybe a big enough market, or it wasn't a recognized market by the big companies to pursue. So she pursued that herself and found that product gap in the marketplace. This is where we're going to stop with the first section of chapter 2 slides, where we have looked at some ways to identify the opportunities and verify the opportunities that have come from our idea generation. The next section of chapter 2, we will look at idea generation and how to go about that now that we kind of understand how to identify the opportunities. So go ahead and watch the next video as well before you complete the assignments.